Hello sports fishermen and sports women out there. Welcome to this little show we're going to put together for you called Gunsmokes Fishing Tips. And today we're going to try to put together a little video to hopefully make you a better trout fisherman. There are a lot of people out there enjoy trout fishing, and I've been one of them for the last 50 years. I've enjoyed trout fishing, and years ago, I would say I was 10-year-old. I'd listened to my father say about going trout fishing, and when I got around 10, this is what he come with. He said, I'm going to take you trout fishing tomorrow. He'd went and cut me an halter, and on the end of it he'd put some nylon line, which I would say was from what the fishermen used to mend the herring and mackerel nets with, and a bobber. We never had bobbers like I've got on this one here back then. I think the old man made me my bobber out of a piece of cork off of one of his lobster boy corks. So when he took me trout fishing, when we got to the brook, I'd either put a live minnow on this hook or worm and spool off a bunch of line, probably 10-12 foot of line. Then I'd coil it up in my hand and cast it out on the brook and let it float along. So as soon as I cast it out, I'd pick up my halter and just let it float slowly down the stream and hope to catch a trout. Well, that day there, the first day I ever went with my father, he hooked a big brook trout, and I can't remember just how big this fish was, but I know it was a big fish, and the beautifulest thing I ever seen in my life. And I guess that day the trout wasn't the only thing hooked, because I was too. And that got me started in trout fishing for a lifetime of enjoyment and fun that I've had over the years. And hopefully today I'm going to share some of that with you to get more of you out there into the lovely sport of trout fishing. And this rig here, I would say I used until I was 12 or 13 years old, before I earned enough money to go to Home Hardware in Barrington and bought my first spinning rod. And I think I bought the rod, the reel, hooks, line, lures, everything I needed. It all come to around $7 to $8 in total. And I fished that rod until I was married. Until the age of 18, 20-year-old, I used that same rod. Now, trout fishing now has come a lot further than back then, because there was no money and there was nothing around to use much. But we had to make all of our own gear. That was it. That's all you had. There was very few. I know my father used to borrow a rod from a guy, and that would look like a saltwater rod or a bait cast rod, like it wasn't a spinning rod. But today there's so many different rods and reels out there you can get into. But first thing you got to remember about trout fishing, it's a sport. So a poor day trout fishing is better than a good day at work. Get out there and enjoy it and have some fun. Enjoy the outdoors. There's nothing better than the spring of the year with the birds and everything. It makes for a beautiful day outdoors. So we're going to get started on this little video, and like I said, hopefully it'll help you. Now, we're already into the middle of March, and our trout season in this area opens up the 1st of April. So you dedicated trout fishermen out there, I'm sure most of you has already been overhauling your gear. And that consists of new line on your rod and reel, all new knots. Tie all your knots over. Make sure you got all new knots. We're going to get into knot tying and stuff here in a minute. And just check everything over. Check your gear over. What I like to do is pre-rig all my leaders and everything before I go in, and that way I spend time fishing, not rigging hooks and line. So we're going to show you that stuff in a while here too. So most people that I know will either fish brooks, streams, rivers, and in that case, I would go with a telescopic rod. Something that, if you're fishing a little spot, walking through the woods to get to these spots, when you're done fishing that spot, you just collapse these telescopic rods, throw it in your knapsack, and you can move downstream as far as you want to go. You haven't got to worry about weaving an 8-foot rod through the bushes and around trees. And that type of fishing demands some special equipment. You make sure that you got good warm clothing, good boots, and I always made sure that I put a couple pair of dry socks in my knapsack and a couple bread bags, for the simple reason you could very well get your feet wet. So if you got new dry socks with you, you can change your socks, but your boots are still going to be wet, so you put the bread bag over your dry socks. Then when you put your foot back in your boot, you don't get those nice dry socks wet. Then you can finish out your day trout fishing. If you're wearing chest waders, never step into a brook or a stream with a pair of chest waders without a good strong belt around your waist of your chest waders. Because if you slip and fall in or step into a hole without a belt, them chest waders are going to fill full of water and you're going to be in one scrape of all scrapes. But with that belt around your waist, it does not allow the water to get down into your boot part of your chest waders, and you stand a chance of getting back on your feet and getting ashore. So that's a little tip right there. Never put chest waders on without a good belt around your waist. And if you're fishing from a boat like I do, you want a life jacket. If you've got a couple guys, it's mandatory. You've got to have a life jacket. You should have flares with you. A bailer to bail water out of your boat. Oars, oar locks, and a decent boat. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want something that's going to leak and stuff. Most boats that we see on the lakes trolling for trout are 12 to 14 foot aluminum boats. Something that's, you know, fairly decent to go out in on a lake, because you don't know when the wind could breeze up. I see a lot of guys fishing from canoes with motors on the stern of the canoes. A canoe is a great little boat for rivers and streams and paddling, but I've not reached safe about going in any canoe with a motor on it, because they're very, very tippy, and to me it looks like a disaster waiting to happen, even though you're a seasoned canoeist. So and also you should have a good anchor and a rope in case you get into a scrape, your motor breaks down or whatever. You can anchor your boat or row ashore, whatever you got to do. But when you're in a boat trout fishing, the main thing is safety. Be very, very careful, and don't turn a great day of fishing into a disaster, which happens so many times in this area. In this area, we're commercial fishermen, most of us. We beat the Atlantic Ocean down all of our life, hurricanes and storms, and I don't know what it is about going into a lake or pond makes you feel invincible. Just because you're in a lake and a pond, so what's going to hurt me in here? I've been on the Atlantic Ocean all my life. But it can and it will happen because you let your guard down. You still got to be careful, regardless of where you are in any boat, because you're dealing with cold water. In hypothermia, you get into that water, you're not going to last very, very long. So just be careful out there and enjoy yourself. So moving along, fishing in a boat, trolling. I see a lot of people come with a little handheld dip net. Small little hand dip nets, and trying to reach out over the side of the boat to dip a trout. That's trouble to begin with right there. You're on the side of the boat, you're tipping the boat. Get yourself a nice long handled dip net so you can stand in the middle of the boat, dip your trout, and not have to be on the side of the boat where it could end up upsetting at any time. So that's a must when you're trolling in a boat, is a good long handle. You can buy them extension handles that go out farther than this one. but you want a good long handle dip net for fishing in a boat. Use your gear accordingly. You know what I mean? Like when you're fishing either from the banking, like I said, in brooks, rivers and streams, or if you like trolling, which is my favorite method of trout fishing. There's so many things, different things out there today that you can get to help you. There's sounders, there's all kinds of stuff to make it easier for you to find and catch fish. So we'll be getting into that in one of our next segments here. The gear, you know, the proper gear, or the gear that will help you catch more fish. So like I said, different things for different places in this great sport of trout fishing. So from here, I guess we're going to go get into some knot tying, basic knot tying and stuff, and that will be coming up in the next segment here in just a minute or so. So bear with us, we'll get right back. Okay, we're back. The first thing you want to look after is pick up your fishing license. Most stores in around will carry them. You'll see a sign out front that says fishing licenses. Make sure you get this. Without it, you're in a mess. And what I like to do, I take my fishing license and I put it in a Ziploc baggie and just put it in my tackle box, so it's kept good and dry. If they want, Department of Lands and Forests want to see my license, I can reach in my tackle box, get it, and I know it's not going to be wet from rain or the weather or whatever. Now, I'm pretty sure anyone 65 years of age and older don't have to have a fishing license, but the youngest age limit I'm not sure on. I think it's 12 and under don't have to purchase a license, but check your regulations and make sure before you take a youngster in and discourage him from trout fishing from the get-go, because he gets charged for not having the license. So check your regulations, because they change from year to year. So alright, so we'll get started from there. And like I said, when you're trout fishing, you got to be ready to cover everything that could possibly happen when you're trout fishing. You want minnows, worms, lures, streamer flies, whatever you use that you like to use, because trout, some days they'll hit minnows, some days you can't catch one on a minnow. You put on a worm and he's all over it, or you try a lure. Now, those of you who fish lures, I don't know if you know this or not, but a lure has 3 hooks on it. They're called a jig hook, a triple hook. That is all you're allowed to have on one line at any one time, is 3 hooks. You can have 3 single hooks on your fishing line, or 1 lure. So don't get caught with a lure on and a wet fly or a streamer fly above your lure, because you've upped it to 4 hooks. Illegal. You'll be charged, you'll lose your rod, you'll lose your tackle box, and the whole deal. So if you're fishing lures, just a bare lure, nothing else. Or if you're fishing worms, you can have a spinner with a single hook on it with a worm, and you can have a couple streamer flies, a hit of that spinner for attractors, whatever you want. But fishing lures, just a lure, that's it. And like I said, be patient. You're out there to enjoy yourself. Don't make no difference if you don't catch no fish. Just go out and enjoy it, and then put in a good day of fishing. It'll do you a world of good and out in the fresh air. And that's what it's all about, enjoying yourself. So what we're going to get started on right off here is basic knot tying. Attaching the hook to the line. Now, when it comes to hooks, as like I said, there's so many different ones out there. This I like to call a J hook. It's just a basic number 4 trout hook, and mostly used for live bait, for a live minnow. And I'll give you an idea how that's done. And when you tie this on, you pass the line through the back end of the hook, not the front end of the hook, facing the point of the hook. From the back end of the hook, you pull it through. Give yourself plenty in. Don't be shy of a little bit of line. And the basic knot I'm going to tie is called a clinch knot. It's simply 6 wraps, no less than 6 wraps over the line. You can count them if you want to. It don't make a difference if you put on 7 or 8, but no less than 6. Now, what a lot of people usually don't know about this knot, or any knot in monofilament, never tie it dry. You'll burn your line, you'll destroy your line. Wet your line with a little water. All I do is just pass it through my lips and wet that line. Then you take the end of the line, pass it through the loop down by the eye of the hook. Leave yourself plenty in and slowly draw the knot down till it's snug. When that knot comes down snug, it's a 100% knot. It's not going to break because you wetted the line. It lubricated the line. If you hold that line tight, dry, it'll all depart right off in your hand. Another little tool that I wouldn't even think about going trout fishing without is a simple pair of fingernail clippers. This is so handy for snipping off the ends of line when you've tied knots, or if you want to change hooks or flies or lures or anything. A simple pair of fingernail clippers. Just snip, and away you go. Throw them into your tackle box. Same as I'm going to do here. I'm going to snip that hook off, and I'm ready to tie another knot, which is basically the same knot, and same idea. Give yourself plenty in, but instead of wrapping the line this time, you're going to make 2 loops over the line. Just 2 round loops. Then you pass the end of your line through those 2 loops. Grab the end. Same idea. Wet it. Wet the line. Pull those 2 loops tight. Slide it down to the eye of the hook. Snub it up tight. Take your fingernail clippers again, and you can cut the end of the line as close as you want to. I always like to leave a little tag in, just a little bit, just in case the knot slips a little bit or whatever, and you don't lose the fish because you cut your knot off too close, like the end of your line too close. But that there is 2 of the most basic knots that you would ever use trout fishing. Tying on flies or lures or spinners or any kind of hook. Like I said, this J hook, what I use when I'm using a live minnow, I just take the minnow by the head and I'll pass this hook just about quarter way up from his tail, and I hook the hook in through his back. Don't want to hit his backbone, paralyze him, he's not going to swim. You just go through the meat, just above his tail a ways, and hook it through, so when you drop him in the water, he's head down and swimming. So when you cast that out with a bobber, that little minnow is swimming, and you'll see your bobber moving up and down on top of the water, letting you know that minnow is still alive and fresh. After a while, you're probably going to have to change him and put a new one on. But it's a very effective way of catching fish, trout, with the live minnow. So, that pretty well covers that end of it on knot tying. Like I said, yes, there is other knots and stuff that you need to learn, but for basic trout fishing, those 2 knots I just showed you will get you through at any one time. Now, we're going to go into applying the line to your reel. Now this here is my rod and reel. Like I said, you haven't got to break your bank account to get yourself a decent spinning reel and rod. This is just a name brand spinning reel and rod, 8 foot. It's an open face reel with the drag system on the front of the reel. That's the main thing, good drag system. Now each here, I like to change this line because the memory will go out of your line from trolling and stuff. So I just spool all the old line off, and I take a new spool of line for a spinning reel or any trout fishing reel like this. You just can throw it down on the floor, apply the end of the line to your reel. All I use is that knot I showed you to tie your hook on with the 2 loops, just a double slip knot, and you can apply a little pressure and start filling your spool up with this line. You don't want to overfill your spool. A lot of people fill the spool right up to the very top. All that is going to do is cause problems, because when you cast, a lot of that line is going to come out over the spool, and there you are with a handful of balled up monofilament, and there's nothing any worse than that kind of a mess in this final line, because there's no clearing it out. So I would say about 3/4 of your spool, and that there is probably more line than you'd ever use trolling for any kind of trout fishing. Now that was how you apply monofilament to a spinning reel. Now if you was a bass fisherman and you had the bait cast reel, which sits on top and it goes from side to side, you'd want someone to put a pencil through that spool of line and hold it for you out in front of you, so when you put that on a bass fishing reel, it's going from side to side because they got a little spurter on them. That's the correct way to put your line on a bass fishing reel or a bait cast reel. But a spinning reel, the line goes on the spool the same way it comes off the spool that the line is on to hold its memory, and you don't get a kinky line. So that's covered. Now we can get into some different methods of trout fishing. Like I said, what I like to do is pre-rig my leaders at home. I just take little pieces of styrofoam and I make all my leaders whatever I want to be fishing that day. Make them up at home so I ain't got to spend time doing it there. And here I've got a simple gold spinner and probably a 6-inch leader coming from the spinner to a minnow hook. This is the cable minnow hook. It goes through the mouth of the minnow and out his back in, and you snare the hook back on the end of it. Very diddly method for rigging up a minnow for trolling. And this hook here it's a double hook. It's not a lure. It's not got 3 on it. It's 2. It's 2 hooks. So okay, we're back. Line test. There's so many different lines on the market. Name brands, there's thousands of monofilament. What I use is for the area I fish. I fish anywhere from an 8-pound to a 10-pound test monofilament, a good name brand monofilament for trolling. It gives me a little bit to work with in case my line gets across bottom or goes across the bottom of the boat fighting the fish. When I was fishing in streams and brooks, I'd come down to 4 to 6 pound. It's plenty. There's plenty of line to catch any brook trout there is around. Because if you hook into a nice fish, you're going to use your drag system, so he's not going to part your line. If he does, your line is rotten, you never changed it this spring and your line is bad. So like I said, whatever you're comfortable in using for monofilament. If you've got something you like, don't change it. Like I always said, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So we'll go back to our rods here and reels. This, like I said, is an open face reel. The reason I like these reels, you can see what your line is doing at all times. If it gets a backlash or balls up a bit, you can spool some off and get it cleared out. Now, with the closed face reel, you can't see what's going on with your line. If it balls up inside, you got to take the cover off and frig around and clear it out and put the cover back on. A lot of people use closed face reels. A lot of the younger kids I notice use them, but they got the parents with them and the parents clean out the meshes. But the open face reel, like I said, you can see what's going on with your line at all times. Don't overfill your spool. Keep it about 3/4 full. It's plenty of line, more than you'll ever use. Simple bail method. You just open the bail and cast. Then you can close the bail yourself by hand, or just turning the handle on the reel will close the bail for you and you can start retrieving your line. But casting is where you got to be careful, especially fishing from the shore, brooks and streams. That's the beauty of your chest waders. You can get out into the brook a little bit and have some room behind you, so you're not right up against the bushes. And when you go to cast your minnow or whatever out into the stream, it isn't back there hooked into a tree or a bush. That could cause you to say some nasty words at times. So make sure of your surroundings. If you've got a buddy fishing with you, make sure you know where he is at all times. The last thing he wants is a minnow and a hook in the ear or an eye. So especially in a boat, casting from a boat with a partner with you in the bow, because if you're in the stern, you're going to be casting that way, and when you bring that rod forward to cast, he's sitting in the bow, and if you got a lure on and he don't notice you and that hooks him in the side of the face, 3 hooks. I've had my share into me in my lifetime, and believe you me, it's not great fun cutting these hooks out of you. Very painful. So with that said and done, that pretty well covers the rods, the reels, and the line part of it. We can go ahead with a little more technology. Now, this is a 9-foot Fenwick Eagle fly rod for fly fishing. A lot of people back away from these, so I'll never learn to cast a fly rod. Simplest thing you'll ever do in your life, learn to cast a fly rod. If you want to get into fly fishing, want a little help learning, just stop in, see me anytime. I would be more than glad to show you. 10 minutes I can have you casting more than far enough to catch any trout. And I ain't going to be able to show you in the house here just how these work. Like I said, the different lines you can get for these. Now this is a tapered line. It's bigger in the middle and it gets smaller as it goes out towards the end of the line, makes for good casting. You keep your eyelets with a little bit of Vaseline or something so they'll slide through nice and smooth. I just use Vaseline, works fine. And after a day's fishing, I'll clean my line with a rag, hot water and a little soap detergent, and pass my line through it to clean all the old filament off the water, scum that picks up on your line from a day's fishing. You want to get that off, keep your line clean at all times so it'll cast smoothly. So the basics in fly casting, or a fly casting rod, I'll show you on this piece of dowel, because that rod is 9 foot long and the ceilings is only 8 foot. So is all you got to remember, directly over your head is a 12 o'clock position. So when you cast your fly rod, you take off some line off your reel, you bring your rod tip back to the 10 o'clock position. Then when you bring it forward, you stop your rod tip at the 2 o'clock position. That's what carries your line out ahead of you. Then if you want to go out farther, you just take a little more line off your reel, you bring the rod tip back to the 10 o'clock position, then ahead to the 2 o'clock position. But the best way to learn to fish a fly rod is put a magazine or a small book under your armpit and hold it there at all times. Don't drop it. To keep your arm against your side. So you're 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. If you can learn to do it with a magazine or a book under your armpit, you've got it mastered from the get-go. You can't have your arm frailing around like a whip. It's got to be against your body. So it's 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Add more line if you want to go out farther with your fly. 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And if we got time, it's a nice fine day out, we'll go out and I'll give you a little demonstration on the fly rod. But it's one of the most effective ways of trout fishing there is, because I've seen days when they're not biting worms and minnows, a fly will drain a brook. You get in the right spot. Match the hatch. Whatever the fish are taking, mayflies, caddis flies. You've got a variety of flies, which I got here that I tie all my own. I tied all my own flies. I've got woolly buggers, dry fly, bugs, bombers we call them. I've got streamer flies, wet flies or attractor flies, whatever everybody calls them. And here I've got an assortment of muddler minnows. As far as I'm concerned, one of the best flies tied. They represent a crippled minnow on top of water, stunned or hurt. Diddly fly on large, especially large trout. In any stream, brook, lake I've ever been, I've seen days that you couldn't get a bite on nothing else. You put one of these minnow muddlers out, and you're going to catch fish, and big fish, if they're there to catch. Like I said, a lot of places don't have big fish anymore, but there's still some nice lakes in this area that still have some real big fish in them. And some of my largest fish I've ever taken in my life was taking on these muddler minnows, trolling them behind the boat, slow, on top of water with my fly rod, same as trolling with a spinning rod. Just troll them along slow. The trout looks up, sees it going there, he thinks it's a crippled minnow, he'll come up and strike it. And I've taken 3 to 4 in my lifetime, 20-odd inch, 5-pound brook trout out of the lakes in this area on these muddler minnows. I wouldn't even leave home without them. The muddler minnow, very effective fly. Then, like I say, some days loa could be diddly, minnows could be diddly today or this morning, this afternoon. They could be taking worms. Be prepared for everything. Have everything there with you when you go. Say, gee, should have brought my fly rod. Take it, regardless if you use it or not. Take it, because you don't know. Sun could go in, you catch them on something else. Sun comes out, you got to change over. Be ready for everything. We brought it outside just to give you a little demonstration on how simple it is to cast a fly rod, if anybody's interested in getting into it. Now this line here is a little stiffer. It's been laying around all winter. But the main thing in casting a fly rod, like I said, is keep your arm against your side. Just 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. That's all it is to it. I'm having a little problem with this because, like I said, the line has been laying around all winter, and it's not been lubricated or nothing, but it's just to show you how simple it is. 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. You can see where that fly is going. 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. If you want to add more line each time, 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And you keep going. There's no limit to how far you can lay that fly out. You just keep adding line. But the correct way to fish when you're fishing in a stream is start in close. Start in close. Let your fly sweep downstream. 3 or 4 casts. If you don't raise the fish, add a little more line. Go out a couple foot further. Let your fly sweep downstream. Fish it back slowly. And keep working your way out over the pool or whatever. And that's how simple it is to use a fly rod. Very effective method of trout fishing, especially later in the spring when the flies and the mayfly hatches and stuff is out. But need any help, don't be scared, stop in and I'll show you. Within a half hour, I'll have you a professional fly fisherman. 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Keep your arms tight to your side of your body. You can put that fly in the same spot every time. It's just that easy. Like I said, this line, when I get the lubricant on this line, soften it up a little bit before I start trout fishing, it'll work a lot better, because the eyes and the rod are dry, the line is dry and stiff from laying around all winter. Nothing, a little bit of Vaseline won't fix. And your eyelets and a little bit of fly line lubricant on your line. Makes it work so much better. Okay, another popular fishing sport in this area that I live in is mackerel fishing. In the summer months, late summer to early fall, you'll see huge crowds on the causeway or on your wharves and stuff, tourists included, love to go mackerel fishing. Now, what they basically use for mackerel fishing is, you can buy the pre-rig leaders, the most fishing outlets and stuff. They're rug up with 4, 5, 6 flies on them, mackerel flies we call them, and you just attach it to your rod, or you can use a bobber and a piece of bait, which if you catch a mackerel, we'll say a small mackerel, and you can use him, if you want to use bait, is take some parts of his belly, cut it up in small strips, and hook it through the middle on a small hook and a bobber and cast out, and that's a great way of catching mackerel. But majority of them are caught on these mackerel rigs, casting out with a weight, a small lid weight with 4 or 5 of these mackerel hooks above it, and reeling it in slow. And once one grabs, it seems like he gets flashing around, more will bend onto it, and you'll be able to come in with 4 or 5 mackerel now. But what I wanted to stress in this whole part of mackerel fishing, that you have just invested probably this spring in a $50, $60 spinning reel, rod, reel and line. Now when you go from freshwater to saltwater, you're talking a different ball game. Saltwater, very corrosive. So when you come home from mackerel fishing, even though you're planning to go back mackerel fishing another day, flush your rod and reel down with the garden hose. Get that salt off that reel. It ain't going to hurt your line. If you don't use your line again for the rest of the season, you're going to change it next spring anyway. But your reel, that salt water gets into the working parts of this reel, will destroy it. You pick that reel up next spring and everything will be seized solid and fast, and now you got to go buy a new reel. So give it a little washing, flushing out with fresh water, garden hose. All I do, wash it off, wipe it dry, put it away till your next day fishing, and you won't have no problems, and won't cost you money down the road the next season to rig up again. Now, any fishing you do, if you don't want to eat the fish and you're just catch and release, fine, that's perfect, A1. If you want to release the fish or you want to save a few to eat, but a lot of times you notice the fish will take the bait or the hook deep, and it'll get down into his gills or into his poke, and he'll be bleeding quite bad. He's flattening around, the blood will be coming out of him. There's no good to release that fish. He's not going to make it. That fish will die and just sink to bottom for something else to eat. So in mackerel fishing, there's no quotas. You catch all you want. But damaged fish that are bleeding and hurt, you just may as well save them is to release them now. Trout, same thing. You're allowed 5 fish per day in this area. Regardless if you're staying into a camp, for 4 days, you're still only allowed 5 fish when you come out. You can't catch 5 today and 5 tomorrow. You're allowed 5 fish in your possession. So if you want to save a couple, 3 to eat, which is fine. In a camp, there's nothing any better than a nice mess of brook trout. But you haven't got to save them all. You want to release fish that's hooked lightly, release them. Let them go for somebody else to enjoy the sport of catching them. But, like I say, hook and release, if that's what you want to do, fine. If you want to save a few fish to eat, fine, but enjoy it. And preserve what we got left, because it's getting shy. Alright, we're getting into my favorite part of trout fishing, the trolling end of it. Now don't get me wrong, I spent many a good hours fishing the brooks and streams and rivers when I was younger. But once I went trolling in a lake in later years, and I enjoy that the most of all, and there's so many things that make it so much better for you, and what I've got in my hand here is one of them. It's called a bottom or an echo sounder. I think this model here is a Eagle Magna 3. It's around 20 or 25 years old now. The wife bought it for me one year for a birthday present. One of the best little rigs I've ever owned. Simple to use. Small battery. I use a lawn tractor battery. It can be recharged every year. It marks fish. It tracks fish. It tells you the depth to the bottom. Shows you all the shoals. Has a fish alarm on it. When you're not really looking at it and you go over a trout, it'll beep. And what I see of it, you're not fishing blind with this rig. You find the fish in the lake, and even though they might not be biting, you keep going over them. Try something different, worms, minnows, or lures, or flies, or whatever you want to try. And after a while, you keep going over these fish that you're finding on this sounder. When they take the biting or get ready to feed, you're going to catch them. You can go in any lake. Don't make no difference if you've never been into it before. And within a couple hours, you're going to know that lake from one end to the other with this little rig. Because it shows you the shoals, shows you where the fish are, how deep they are, and the whole deal. Great, great little piece of equipment for trolling trout. And only other little accessory I had to have was this stick, which I made myself, for my transducer to go on. And that goes out over the stern of the boat, so it's down past the stern of the boat, so it's giving the echo directly off the bottom, and I just clamp it with this clamp right to the stern of the boat. And I have my little sounder sitting on a bucket or a seat or whatever, so it's facing me at all times. So when I'm fishing, I can watch my sounder and also watch where I'm going and keep track of the fish. And these here are rod holders, a must-have when you're trolling. I have two. Most generally, me and a buddy go fishing together. I have one on my side of the boat. It just clamps to the side of the boat, and you put your rod in it. Now if you cast it out the distance you want to fish behind the boat when you're trolling at a slow speed, that's the whole thing, and the idea is the speed. But these little rod holders, that leaves me with two free hands. I can tend my motor, I can watch my sounder, I can glance at my rod, because if a fish strikes I'm going to see the rod tip bending and stuff, or if a hook up in bottom, whatever. But they're a must-have when you're trolling, these little rod holders. So, like I said, speed when trout fishing, trolling. The first of the season, the water is cold. The trout are maga. They've been laying around on bottom all winter, and the water's cold, so you want to keep it down slow. Slow as you possibly can. Just idle along slow and then troll your baits, your lures, whatever you're fishing. And never troll in a straight line, because all you're doing is dragging your bait to the water straight. You troll the letter S at all times. In next to the shore, back off, watch your sounder as you deepen it out over, turn slowly back in towards the shore, in these little coves and points and stuff, back out, and that will sweep your line in. One line on one side of the boat will speed up when you turn. The one on the other side of the boat will slow down, so I watch that. If the slow rod hooks the fish, that's telling me that I'm trolling too fast. Or if the rod that speeds up when I'm turning, the line and the bait speeds up when I'm turning, if that one hooks the fish, it's telling me to bring my speed up a little bit. So you watch what your lines are doing when you're trolling. And cover water. But the beauty of that little sounder and a motor, you can cover water. You can cover the whole lake. You can go out and find shoals in the middle of the lake, places you never knew existed just by fishing in a lake without a sounder. Well, these little sounders will find you spots you never knew was in this lake. You just might be going along and you look and there's a hump on bottom and 6, 7 fish laying on top this hump. You say, well, I never knew that was there. Well, no, you had no way of knowing it was there because you never had a sounder. And you start fishing that little hump and you start catching some nice fish. Then the next day you go back, you know, basically by looking at the area where that hump is, but you know you're going to find it again because you got your sounder with you. And very effective way of fishing. With the trolling gear they have today, it's a great way to fish. And it's one of my favorite ways to fish. Because like I said, you're not standing in one place fishing, you're moving along as you go. And some of these lakes are large, some are smaller, and you can cover the water. They might not be biting up to the upper end of the lake, but they might be biting down to the lower end, but you're all the time moving when you're trolling, so you're covering the whole lake, and you're going to catch fish, and nice fish. All of our lakes in this area still have nice big trout in them, and nobody fishing them, not a soul. Get in there with your trolling gear, your sounders, your rod holders and stuff, and there's nothing more enjoyable than a day on the water with a good fishing buddy or even by yourself. Is getting out fishing and enjoying nature. And if a few more younger people could throw down the electronics and stuff for a day and buy a trout license and some trouting gear and get out there fishing, I think you really enjoy what Mother Nature has given us. And you get away from the phones, you get away from the traffic, the hustle and the bustle of day-to-day living. All you got is you, nature, birds are singing, and the relaxation of it. If you've got some things on your mind, you don't even think about it when you're trout fishing or trolling, whatever you're doing. It's relaxing. It'll do your world of good. So get out there and enjoy. So thank you very much.